All right, so Andrew Kraft here yet again. All right, it does look like law enforcement is stepping out here. Let's listen. All right, so you can see there law enforcement officials, including the Madison Police Chief, have stepped out here as they are about to begin their updates as well in this most recent press conference. And if I recognize any more officials, we'll make sure to bring that to you. We're just waiting for these law enforcement officials led by the chief there to begin. Looks like they're going to begin.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chief Sean Barnes, S-H-O-N-B-A-R-N-E-S. I'm going to give you a detailed briefing of everything that happened today and include some new information that was not available earlier, as I promised. The Madison Police Department responded to a mass shooting at the Abundant Life Christian School today. Officers were dispatched to the school, which is located on the city's east side at 10:57 a.m. They arrived to find multiple people suffering from gunshot wounds. 3 people, including the shooter, are dead. The shooter has now been identified as 15-year-old Natalie Rupnow, who went by the name Samantha. She was a student at the school, and evidence suggests she died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The official cause of death will be released by the Dane County Medical Examiner pending the conclusion of their examination. She was pronounced deceased while in transport to a local hospital. A teacher and a teenage student were pronounced dead at the scene at that school. 6 other students and a teacher were injured and taken to area hospitals. 2 students remain in critical condition and have life-threatening injuries. A teacher and 3 students were treated for non-life-threatening injuries. 2 of these have been released and discharged from the hospital. The other 2 survivors are considered to be in stable condition. At this time, we believe there was only one shooter involved. We are still working to determine a motive. Detectives have talked to her family members this evening, as well as conduct a search of the shooter's home here in Madison. The shooting happened inside a classroom in a study hall of students from mixed grades. A document about this shooting is circulating this time on social media, but we have not verified its authenticity. The Abundant Life Christian School is being monitored by police overnight. At this time, no one is allowed inside or on the school property. The Madison Police Department is aware that people are hoping to hold a vigil at the school tonight. We're asking you not to do that as this location is still an active crime scene. So I'm going to go over the timeline of events for you. At 10:57 a.m., a 2nd grade student called 911 to report a shooting had occurred at school. Gonna let that soak in for a minute. A 2nd grade student called 911 at 10:57 a.m. to report a shooting at school. Officers were dispatched to the school at 10:57. A deputy with the Dane County Sheriff's Office was the first officer to arrive on the scene at 11 a.m. 24 seconds later, the first Madison police officer arrived on the scene at 11:01 and immediately entered the school. Officers bravely entered the building as soon as they arrived, not knowing what they were going to encounter. At 11:05, officers inside the school alerted people that the shooter was down and that a gun had been recovered. At 11:05, the Madison Police Department also began setting up for parents and guardians at what we briefly described earlier for you as a reunification center that occurred at 11:05. The Madison Fire Department was dispatched to the scene at the same time. They arrived at 11:05 and began linking up with officers who were also inside, and they were instrumental with providing aid to victims who were suffering from gunshot wounds, potentially saving lives. The first public notice about the shooting was posted on the Madison Police Department Incident Report website at 11:13 a.m. Officers began clearing the school building at 11:14, and bomb dogs started to clear the facility at 11:23 a.m. The Madison Fire Department began transporting patients at 11:26. Again, we want to stress that EMS arrived on the scene at 11:05, immediately connecting with officers to enter the scene, not knowing what they were going to experience. Press briefings occurred at 12:15, 12:30, 5:30, and now at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Let's talk a little bit about our law enforcement and our community partners. Multiple agencies assisted with the response to the shooting. The Madison Fire Department and several other Dane County and EMS agencies, the Dane County Sheriff's Office, the University of Wisconsin Police Department, the FBI, the ATF, all have played major roles in our response and in our investigation. We also want to acknowledge UW Hospital as well as St. Mary's Hospital for their work in treating the survivors of today's school shooting. Community resources. There are resources available to anyone needing help or needing someone to talk to. The Crime Response Unit with the Dane County District Attorney's Office have been mobilized. This is a group of people who are trained to help victims of mass violent incidents. This group is made up of social workers, attorneys, victims, professionals, former law enforcement, and other stakeholders in our community. If you need assistance, you can contact the Crime Response Program between 8 and 5 during the daytime. I'll give that number again, 608-284-6908, and you can reach them after hours at 608-376-0164, 608-376-0164 after hours. The Wisconsin Department of Justice's Office of School Safety and Office of Crime Victim Services are also providing resources during this critical time. Their Critical Incident Response Team program is designed to minimize the psychological impact of a school critical incident and helps to provide long-term mental care long after this is over. And I don't know how we can minimize what has happened today, but we're going to do the best we can to provide services for all of these children and staff. We cannot forget the staff who bravely took care of their students during this harrowing time. We also want to thank employees of the Dean Healthcare, which we spoke about before. Again, the clinic shut down for the day, and employees assisted with our unification process. We've also seen an outpouring of support from various community groups and businesses: Twisted Ground Coffee, Greenbush Bakery, Ian's Pizza, Culver's, Mission Barbecue, Starbucks, Salvation Army, and all who donated food for the Unification Center so our children could get fed and be taken care of while they waited to be unified with their loved ones. So a lot has gone on today. I can tell you that it's not over. I can tell you that our officers and our detectives and our investigators will have to be told to go home. No one is thinking about going home right now. They're going to still work as long as they can to find as much information as they can. Obviously, we want to have some daylight tomorrow, so the crime scene is locked down at this particular time, but the officers and detectives and investigators continue to work. This has been a rough day for our city. This has been a sad day. This is going to be a day that will be etched in the collective minds and memories of all those from Madison. It's been a long day for you as well. Thank you for covering it, trying to get the information out to the public as early and as often as we can. And with that, we'll take any questions.
All right, Laura, do you want to go first?
Oh, sure. So there is a Google Doc that is locked that has been circulating on social media. People are saying that is the manifesto of the shooter. Are you able to talk about that at all?
Yeah, we haven't been able to verify that it's authentic. We're certainly aware that it's been posted, and the person who posted it alleged to have a connection with the victim. We have not located him yet, so I cannot say whether or not that's something that she was a part of. As soon as we can, we'll let you know. The good news is we have shared that with our partners, with the FBI, and so we're certainly looking into some of the things that were written in that particular document.
Madison?
Right over here. Could you just recap those numbers one last time for us on the injuries and the deaths?
Sure.
I think that there was some discrepancy there.
Okay. Ready?
Yes.
All right, 3 people, including the shooter, are dead. Identified the shooter for you. A teacher and a teenage student were pronounced dead at the scene. 6 other students and a teacher were injured and taken to area hospitals. 2 students remain in critical condition and have life-threatening injuries. A teacher and 3 students were treated for non-life-threatening injuries, and 2 of those have been released or discharged from the area hospital.
I'm just going to jump in. It's 2 students in critical condition, and then 4, including a teacher, and 3 students with those non-life-threatening injuries.
Thank you.
Lucas from the State Journal.
How did this 15-year-old get a hold of this gun? Do you know at this point, was it given to them?
It's a good question. How does any 15-year-old get a hold of a gun, or anyone for that matter? You get into the philosophical question about guns and gun safety, something that we all should be talking to our loved ones about. That's something that will be a part of this investigation. We are certainly speaking and talking with the parents who are cooperating to determine if they were gun owners and if they had guns. But at this time, again, we're still talking with them. It's been a long conversation. We appreciate them cooperating with the investigation.
Okay, Maddie from WISC.
Is there anything else you can tell us about communication with the parents or the family?
No, just that they are cooperating with us right now. We're currently speaking with the father at one of our facilities, trying to determine what he may knew or may not have known about what happened today. But again, he lost someone as well. And so we're not going to rush the information. We'll take our time and make sure that we do our due diligence in doing that.
Just the father you're speaking with?
That's correct.
Okay.
Could you spell the name, Chief, of the shooting?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. Ready? Natalie, Natalie, Rupnow, Rupnow,
Thank you.
but went by Samantha, common spelling.
Scott from Lakeland.
Went by
Common
Samantha,
spelling.
common spelling.
Okay. Chief, you said the shooting was in a study hall. Was it all self-contained within that room, including the shooter? Was the shooter in that study hall?
Again, I have not been to the crime scene. I was told that it occurred in study hall or during study hall. So there's different students, obviously you can imagine, from different grades that were in there. I have not seen the physical inside of it to be able to answer that question.
All right, Tabitha.
Chief, it's unfortunately notable that a second grader was the one who made that 911 call. Are you able to share with us, that conversation with that second grader and what parents can do as far as talking to their kids about this?
Great. So I'll start with the first thing. What I can share with you is that our 911 dispatch communicators are trained to talk to children. We've talked children through parents choking. We've talked children through CPR and a variety of other things, even giving birth, believe it or not. So they are trained to do that. But to me, it makes my heart skip a beat to think about that. And we teach our kids, if something's wrong, call what? 911. And so the child was able to do that. Give me your second question again, please.
Yeah, when it comes to terms of parents talking to their children about this, specifically about what happened today, but then also, calling 911.
Yep. So the message for parents, for me, is simple. It's the same thing that I would tell my children. Listen to the instruction of the adults in the room. Run, find somewhere to hide, find some cover, find something that may shield or guard you. But the most important thing is listen to the adults in the room, because they've gone through the training to perhaps keep everyone as safe as they possibly can.
Phoebe from Wisconsin Watch.
Chief, there's been a lot of misinformation online, including from prominent Moms for Liberty activists in Wisconsin, claiming that the shooter was transgender, which is a reaction that we see across the country in wake of mass shootings, to claim that trans people are dangerous. Can you respond to that directly in regards to this?
Yeah, I don't know whether Natalie was transgender or not. And quite frankly, I don't think that's even important. I don't think that's important at all. I don't think that whatever happened today has anything to do with how she or he or they may have wanted to identify. And I wish people would kind of leave their own personal biases out of this. We have people who showed up to work today to help kids be better who are not going home. And we have lost members of our community who are children, including the shooter. So whether or not she was, he was, they were transgender is something that may come out later. But for what we're doing right now, today, literally 8 hours after a mass shooting in a school in Madison, it is of no consequence at this time. And so I would encourage people to be responsible with your social media. I won't go into some of the things that I've seen on social media that quite frankly are incorrect, that are not true, that are just not helping at all. And I choose not to breathe life into that, because it's negative and we don't need it right now. We need to come together as a community and heal and try to wrap our arms around those who survived yet another school shooting in Madison. And that's where my focus will be for the very near future.
Adam from CBS, Kincaid.
Right here in the middle. Question for Trish. A few weeks ago, we spoke after the Kenosha incident in which the student actually, it was not a real gun. But we talked about copycats. What is the DOJ doing in the next couple of weeks? Even Chief Barnes or even Special Agent in Charge Hensel about the next few weeks, copycats or possible threats?
Thanks for that question. Trish Kilpin, Wisconsin DOJ Office of School Safety Director. It is true that in light of school shootings, we also see an uptick, a contagion effect of other school threats. Today, in SUSO is our Speak Up, Speak Out Wisconsin tip line where people can report concerns. We have seen an increase in planned school attack tips. Since its inception in 2020, we've received over 350 tips about planned school attacks that can be averted. Often after an incident such as that happened today here in Madison, that people start to think about, I should have reported this, I have knowledge that someone could be planning a school attack, and they need to have a place to report that. So we encourage the community at large, students and families, to report to SUSO or their local law enforcement or local school officials if they have concerns that somebody is planning a school attack. Targeted violence is preventable. When somebody decides to use violence, it's often to redress an upset or a grievance, and they progress down a pathway towards that violence. And when they do that, they often study previous school shooting incidents. So I implore you all to be responsible in terms of how we report this. We do not want to give a blueprint of a manifesto to future people who are thinking of solving their upset with violence. And so Speak Out Wisconsin has received an uptick in tips today. I have communicated with schools across the state as well as with DPI about how to manage and handle those tips, whether it's an anonymous threat or a threat specific to a student. At my office, we teach across Wisconsin behavioral threat assessment and management. This is the process rooted in the scientific body of knowledge of threat assessment of how to determine if a child poses a threat or has made a threat. We have trained thousands of people across Wisconsin, and we continue to do so. So we encourage schools to contact us for information on those trainings and on those tools that we have available to all schools, public and private and tribal, to prevent school violence here in Wisconsin, which is our mission.
All right, Sarah from WPR.
What are the gun policies at the school? Are guns allowed on the school property? For example, are staff at the school allowed to have firearms?
No, we don't have any guns on the school grounds. We don't have it posted as a gun-free zone, but school, we don't allow the students even in the elementary, if they're playing out on the playground and they want to make finger guns, we don't allow that. So we talk about guns in the way that we feel is responsible, that they are to be used by those in authority and those who have a need for them, but that we at school have no need for guns.
And so no staff as well or not?
No.
All right, Daniela. Well, I think you guys stay up there maybe, but you have a question?
Yeah, I do. So I guess this one is for Chief Warren.
Okay.
So was the second grader in the classroom where the study hall was occurring when she made the call, or was she in a different classroom?
I think there was in a different classroom, but obviously the sound of a firearm is usually unmistakable. And then again, we heard how the teachers reacted. Lockdown. The students know what that means. Some level of preparation. And then, of course, a call from the student, 911, of an active shooter. Just want to speak to something that was said in the back about copycats. I can't remember who asked that question. So anyone who makes a call or threat to a school, we will investigate that. And if you're found to be the person to make that call, you will be arrested. You will be arrested.
All right, Ken from WKBT.
Yeah, Barbara, I know this is still incredibly early, but is there a thought process on what the school would like to do in terms of security moving forward? Rethinking what's currently in place? I know we talked about facial scans, but does the school feel like it needs to change anything about its security apparatus?
So we're not the experts in security. We work with the experts in security, and so obviously as we go through this process and review it, we'll talk with those who have better knowledge than we do. We have done everything that we could within our ability to secure the school and to provide a safe learning environment as well as working environment for our staff and our students. But as we review things, that would be something that we continue to do with our Madison Police Liaison and then the Office of School Safety. So I can't speak to that now just because it's so close, but obviously that is something that we will continue to look at. We want our students to feel safe and our faculty to feel safe and guests to feel safe when they're at Abundant Life.
Let me just speak to that again. We stated this earlier, there'll be an after-action report where our police department, fire department, all those who are involved will sit down and we'll go through this event. And so the after-action report is not to find fault. It's not to find liability. It's to find areas for improvement for everyone. If there is a recommendation to be made, we will make that recommendation. But if there's not a recommendation to be made, we won't do that. But we will look to see what we can do as a form of continuous improvement. I think that's very important.
Can you talk about the gun that was used?
I haven't seen it. It's obviously, it may still be on property because you have to be very careful about how we take things from the scene and how we document those. But I know it's a handgun, but I cannot tell you any other characteristics of it at this time.
All right, Jenna.
Chief, was Natalie on your radar at all, on MPD's radar, and have you ever had any sort of interaction with her previous to today?
I don't know if we've ever had any interaction with her to today. That's something that our intelligence analysts will be looking at and going through. Again, we've recently made the positive ID, and so that will be part of the investigation To my knowledge, I'm not aware that we've had any issues with her. I think if there were, we certainly would have had some type of intervention, but I'm not aware of that. But again, that's part of the investigation. We have a criminal intelligence section, and part of their job is to try to do background on people and where they are. And in addition to that, we also have some resources from the FBI, just in case people live other places, right? Not just in Madison. And so we're trying to put together, I think that's what you're trying to get at. What do we know about this person?
All right, we'll get back to you, but
okay.
One of you from ABC.
Is there any additional information that you can give to us on Natalie? Her academic record, her disciplinary record, if any, was she integrated into school? Did she have friends? Is there any color you can share with us on, if there were signs of bullying or anything like that?
Yeah, so obviously that may be a question from the school, but I don't think they can answer that right now. She is a child, and so you're asking about, some personal and private things about them that I don't think they would be at liberty to share at this time. But certainly if she has friends, people will say what they think about her, but just be careful with that information and sharing that. Again, she's still a child, and so some of those information we will not be able to share with you.
Okay, Whitney from CNN.
We've covered several cases recently where parents are eventually charged. Are you questioning the parents with in mind that there might be potential charges for the parents?
No, the parents are fully cooperating. We have no reason to believe that they have committed a crime at this time.
Mills?
As far as the suspect goes, do you know if she planned the attack? And then also, too, do you know if she lived with both her parents or one? Yeah, again, that goes to motivation, which we are not fully aware of at this particular time, and whether or not who she lives with, that kind of speaks to some of her personal attributes, which I'm not going to discuss at this time. Do you believe she planned the
I do not know. I do not know.
All right, Ashley from WI.
Right here. Hi. Can you tell us at all what may have been recovered in the search of the shooter's home, and also what grade was she in?
I'm not sure what grade she was in, but they're still searching, and so they're still going through evidence in the home, and so we do not have a complete list of the things that were collected from the home. Again, that was done with the consent of the parents. Earlier we talked about a search warrant. We did not have to execute that search warrant because we had the full cooperation of the parents.
Were there any weapons?
Again, that would speak to what was collected, and I don't not know what was collected because I believe they're still working to go through that home.
All right, Blake.
Chief, back here, can you confirm at this point the investigation if the home on Delaware Boulevard is the suspected shooter's home?
Yes.
And second part of the question, you talked about your officers running in to that scene. Can you talk about the conversations that you've had with those officers and what is kind of going through their mind mentally right now as they begin to kind of tackle this?
Yeah, as they begin to kind of sit with what they were asked to do today. Before any officer can leave today, they have to go through what we call a checkout procedure. They have to go to our command post, they have to check out with a supervisor, and then they have to check out with someone in peer support. So no officer will go home today without having the opportunity to talk to someone who wears the uniform, who's specially trained to do counseling in crisis management. And so that's part of our checkout procedure.
How do you lead them through this?
We do that through compassion, through leadership, through training, through togetherness, through the support of the community, through understanding that this is a job that is very noble, that is meaningful work, and that my job, our job as leaders, is to make sure that our work is safe and meaningful. It's safe because we have training and tactics that we employ. We did that today. They know exactly what happens during an active shooter. Stop the killing, stop the dying, stop the threat, then treat other people. They all know that, and they all did that today very, very well in cooperation with other law enforcement officers from around the county. And so that was our message that we've been talking about for a very, very long time. We were able to do that today very, very successfully, well, as successfully as we could. And so today, again, tonight, officers will have to sit with that. We have peer support, EAP, and variety of things available for those officers who had to endure that today. So thank you for asking that.
All right, Laura, real quick, and then we gotta get out of here.
So this shooting occurred a couple of hours into the school day. I'm wondering if there were, if anything was reported about, this young woman who did the shooting, if any teachers said anything or any other students.
I would not have information about whether or not she had a record with the school, and quite frankly, that would not be something that we would be able to release.
Is there any timeline on when you're going to release the age and names of the other two victims involved in this?
Yeah, I think we want to make sure that all family members have been notified. We want to make sure that all family members are okay with it. Obviously, people will start to speculate. We had a question earlier about social media and how powerful that can be, and information that people will put out. But we have a briefing set for tomorrow in our command post at 1 p.m. And so that will be one of the topics of consideration, being able to put out the names of those persons, children, staff member who lost their life today trying to protect each other and get another school shooting.
So we'll be back here tomorrow at 1 p.m. and we should wrap it up.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, there you have it. The chief there of the Madison Police Department providing updates on this tragic school shooting today there at Abundant Life Christian School. Before we get into it, you did hear a preview that there will be another press conference tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central Time. We'll be airing that live here on Live Now. I'm Andrew Kraft. We are in a new hour. I just want to recap some of the new details that we learned in that press conference that just wrapped up here. Most notably and most importantly, we now know, confirmed by police, that this female shooter was not 17 years old, but was 15 years old. Her name, Natalie Rupnow. She went by the name of Samantha to her peers, friends, and family there. We also know and got an update that there are several people still in the hospital who were shot and injured. Two of them are in critical condition still. There were two individuals released from the hospital earlier today. They were suffering from non-life-threatening injuries. But we did know that the student and the teacher who were shot and killed today, they were pronounced dead at the scene of the school. And we were told, and this was confirmed, they believe that the 15-year-old shooter, Natalie Rupnow, was pronounced dead on her way to the hospital. They believe this was self-inflicted. They believe that this happened inside of a classroom where, quote-unquote, study hall was going on at the time of the shooting. A really just grim and chilling detail in all of this was that a second-grade student called 911 to report law enforcement that a possible shooting was taking place here. And so you heard there from the chief that there was being widely reported and speculated on social media about the presence of some type of document that outlined shooting plans. Now, the chief there said that that has not been verified. He only referred to it as a document. And so we'll have to wait for any more corroboration or not on that piece of the story, on whether or not that exists. And if it does exist, what does it say? What do its contents say here? They believe this individual was the only shooter. They still do not know what the motive may have been in all of this. Remember that we were showing you a live vantage point of a house in Madison, Wisconsin, a small family home with Christmas lights on it. Police did identify and confirm that is the suspected shooter's family home there. You heard there from the chief that the shooter's parents, and especially her father, are cooperating with law enforcement there. And so wanted to make sure we got in all of those details from that most recent press conference here. We're going to be relying on our Fox 6 partners throughout the course of the evening. Remember, there's going to be another press conference tomorrow afternoon. We'll air that live. What we do want to do right now, though, is check in with our friend Fox's Connor Hansen. He's in New York following all these most recent details. And he joins me now live. And Connor, thanks for being with us here. A really, really hard, tough day for the community of Madison, Wisconsin. I was just trying to recap what we learned. A lot new details there from the chief in that latest press conference, right?
That's right, Andrew. Really shocking new details, and I'm sure you've shared some of them live as they've come out. But police now identifying the shooter in this mass shooting, this school shooting, as a 15-year-old girl named Natalie Rupnow, who went by Samantha as the shooter in this case. She has died along with 2 other victims, another teenage student, and a teacher. And meanwhile, 2 other students still fighting for their lives in the hospital right now. Some others getting released, being back with their family. But we're hearing this shooting actually took place inside a classroom during some kind of study hall with children from all different grades, different ages. Maybe one of the more shocking details to come out of that press conference was that first 911 call shortly before 11 a.m. Central Time was made by a 2nd grader saying there was a mass shooting going on inside the school. A school community in Madison, Wisconsin rocked by tragedy just a few days before the Christmas holiday. Parents finally reunited with their children after a student opened fire inside Abundant Life Christian School Monday.
The students handled themselves magnificently. They were clearly scared when they heard lockdown, lockdown, and nothing else. They knew it was real.
Police confirming so far 3 people are dead, including the shooter who used a handgun.
At this time, we're still working on a motive, trying to determine why this happened.
2 individuals were pronounced dead at the scene, while 1 died on the way to the hospital.
We believe that the shooter was at school. We have no information that there was some type of breach to the school.
Meanwhile, 6 people were taken to local hospitals with varying injuries. 2 survivors have been released. Parents still reeling from the panic.
You don't think you're going to go through this. I pray for my daughter's safety. I pray for the entire school's safety.
And police in Madison just wrapped up what will likely be their last press conference for the night. Still no word on what the motive might be behind this shooting, but we do know detectives have searched the home of that 15-year-old girl and have been talking to her parents. So hopefully more details will come out about that. But the question police are asking, and so many others want to know, is how did a 15-year-old girl get a hold of a handgun and bring it to school? Andrew?
Yeah, of course, still so many unknowns at this point in this story. Connor, as always, thanks so much. We'll talk soon.
Thanks.
All right, in the meantime here, some more of those unknowns, just like Connor was alluding to. You heard there from the chief when asked, how does a 15-year-old get a weapon? You are not legally allowed to possess and own a weapon if you are under the age of 17 in Wisconsin. And so that's a question. Obviously, he was asked what grade this shooter is in. Natalie Rupnow, known by Samantha to her colleagues, friends, and family. And they wouldn't answer that question. They didn't have an answer on that about what grade she was in at the time here. Let's continue with this, though. Fox 6 in Milwaukee, they're in full breaking news coverage. And they have reporters stationed all around Madison with all angles of this. Let's keep watching.
In the last half hour,
the FBI, authorities in Madison have updated the shooter's name and age. We do have new developments as well. Ashley Sears joins us from Madison with what police just told us.
Yeah, police providing us with that update a short time ago. We did learn more about the shooter and a timeline of events. The police identifying the shooter as 15-year-old Natalie Rupnow. Investigators say she also went by the name Samantha. The chief tells us she appears to have died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The shooting took place inside a study hall with mixed grades inside. A teacher and teenage student were killed. 2 students were critically injured. A teacher and 3 students suffered non-life-threatening injuries. The police chief tells us it was a second grader who called 911 from within the school to report the shooting.
The shooting happened inside a classroom in a study hall of students from mixed grades. A document about this shooting is circulating this time on social media, but we have not verified its authenticity. The Abundant Life Christian School is being monitored by police overnight. At this time, no one is allowed inside or on the school property.
Now, police raided the home of the shooter this afternoon. They would not speak to what was found inside that home or any possible motive. They do tell us that the shooter's parents are cooperating with this investigation. Reporting live in Madison, Ashley Sears, Fox 6 News.
Ashley, it's a small Christian school on the city's east side. There's some really young kids inside of that school when this happened.
Yes, and the police chief spoke to that and about talking to your own children about incidents like this and what to do in this sort of incident and how to cope with these sort of tragedies.
K-3 through 12, there were preschoolers inside the school. Ashley Sears reporting live from Madison. Ash, thanks. And the shooting is prompting conversations all across the state, from schools to the Milwaukee Police Association.
Christina Van Zelst talked with the union's president, who explains how MPD responds to critical incidents.
The Milwaukee Police Union president says that officers here in Milwaukee are all thinking of those impacted by today's tragedy in Madison. Alexander Ayala explains Milwaukee has one of the best training programs in the country for active shooter situations. He says they are trained to sacrifice their own life to stop a threat. He also notes in his experience and training that it's not common for a female to be the shooter. The tragedy comes as things are still in a standstill when it comes to getting school resource officers into MPS. Back in September, MPS said it hoped to start the program as soon as officers are available, but the city attorney said that there are still unresolved issues.
Even though we don't have SROs in place currently, that the public should have full confidence in the Milwaukee Police Department and the members of this association, that they're going to respond quickly and they're going to stop the threat, or whatever threat is that needs to be stopped.
Just the feel of it. The group Moms Demand Action is pushing for stricter gun laws in Wisconsin tonight, specifically for secure gun storage laws, which would require gun owners to store their firearms locked, unloaded, and separate from ammunition. Reporting live in the newsroom tonight, Christina Van Zelst, Fox 6 News.
Christina, thank you. And school safety, of course, is top of mind. What can we do to prevent other school shootings at the forefront of many people's discussions?
So many people are talking about this. My school sent out a message tonight. We brought in security expert and owner of Secure Resources Unlimited, Brian Dura, here to talk about this. So many shocking developments tonight. A 15-year-old female shooter. What's your takeaway when you hear these new details?
Yeah, I'm horrified. It's another tragedy, right? Mm-hmm. I was here a couple weeks ago when we were praising a school official for doing that intervention that possibly could have led to something, more heinous, and now we're here because of a school shooting. It's just a tragedy.
Let's talk about the training, because we've heard about this school received a grant from the Department of Justice. They'd gone through numerous trainings, and that helped save lives.
Yeah. So the training, to boil it down, it's run, fight, or hide. There's just every school district that I know, they certainly have a school safety plan. They're training, they're doing drills, there's awareness, and this is just another example. As I've shared, you have 4 minutes. 4 minutes usually from the time, and this is pretty customary where we see the shooter take his, or in this case, her life, which is a new dimension to this, because I'm not aware of any female shooters that when I've studied these mass shootings, I've come across a female shooter like.
And you say 4 minutes. Authorities in Dane County were on the scene within 3 minutes.
Yeah,
and it was over.
That's outstanding. That's outstanding, because you never know how it could have kept going. And we certainly we'll find out the motivation, and more importantly, we'll find out, was there more ammunition to continue this? But, law enforcement got on the scene so fast. mitigated the circumstances. Unfortunately, we lost some lives.
My takeaway here, how do you stop the threat from within? This was a student who was at school. This is different than Sandy Hook or Uvalde, where they had an outside student. A lot of times we're talking about this, and it's how do you stop someone from coming in the school? This was a student who was in the school, presumably for a few hours before this occurred.
Yes. So we talked about the response. It's important. Well, we talked about the training. You got to reduce the vulnerabilities. You got to train. You got to know what to do during these critical incidents. Okay. Then we talked about the police response. We have seconds. They got to get there. They have to certainly find the shooter, address the threat, and take care of victims. But that's the biggest conversation: is how do we become more proactive? And I'm involved in some conversations with school districts where they're looking at metal detectors. You got to take that next step. Some of my clients have armed officers in schools.
But even before that, this school, we learned, had cameras. In the school. So, you know, that's an extra layer that a lot of schools don't have. We heard from a DOJ person saying that these shootings rarely happen in a vacuum, that the person is writing about it, they're acting differently, and other people are seeing these changes.
They do, and that's the awareness level, and whether it's a teacher, whether it's a counsel, but the most information will probably come from other students. And I can't emphasize enough, I've been on the media, talking to the media about this, they do leave a trail. Very rarely will someone just come and say, today is the day. They plan for it. They look at it, when is the most opportune time, and they do leave a trail. So I will be interested to see, going back, what type of social media, who did they talk to, and unfortunately it doesn't appear that anything was said to authorities, because as you saw the police chief, they will take decisive action. Anybody makes a threat like that, you're going to get a knock on the door from the police department. They're going to look into this, but I'm not sure if that occurred in this.
I think that's the takeaway for all parents, all school leaders tonight. If you see something, say something. You never know what that's going to look like.
Students, if you hear something, you see something, don't share it and say nothing. Tell an adult.
Tell an adult. Tell a teacher. There's an obligation to dig into it further to see if it's valid or not. So absolutely, you have to say something. You have to, it could certainly prevent lives if you don't.
Brian Doro, the conversation will continue on Fox 6 News at 10. We really appreciate you being here on what is a very tough night in Wisconsin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we thank our colleagues there at Fox 6 Milwaukee for providing all of that great reporting, analysis, and context to what has been a tragic day for the community of Madison. In the meantime, we're going to step away from this story. Remember, there is going to be yet another press conference tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. local time. We'll have that for you here on Live Now. We're going to take a quick commercial break. There's a lot more to get to. We're going to get to it. And like I said, I'm Andrew Kraft. We'll see you in just a moment. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Like I said before the break, we do want to move on and transition into some of these other top stories that I know you're following, including numerous drone sightings that continue over the skies of New Jersey. We're hearing a little bit more from federal officials about what these sightings might be and what they might portend here. Fox News correspondent Nate Foy has this report.
Knows, and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense.
President-elect Donald Trump declined to answer if he's received an intelligence briefing on mysterious drones over several states, but promised U.S. capabilities are strong.
Our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. I can't imagine it's the enemy, because if it was the enemy, they'd blast it out. Even if they were late, they'd blast it. Something strange is going on.
The White House still won't provide answers. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy received a briefing from FBI officials on Sunday, as New Jersey and New York receive federal drone detection technology. Thermal imaging used in Far Hills, New Jersey shows what looks to be a drone is really an airplane, while federal officials confirm others are in fact drones.
I believe the people
who I represent. The people in New Jersey deserve clear answers.
U.S. drone capabilities remain a concern. The Wright-Patterson Air Force Base outside Dayton, Ohio, shut down its airspace for hours this weekend after drone sightings the Pentagon believes are unrelated to the other sightings. Meanwhile, in Germany, a spokesperson for the U.S. Air Forces in Europe confirms with Fox News, quote, in early December, there were sightings of small unmanned aerial systems, also known as drones, in the vicinity of and over Ramstein Air Base, with no impacts to base residents, facilities, or assets. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock, the White House is set to brief the House Intelligence Committee on the drones. As for the federal technology deployed in New Jersey right now, Governor Phil Murphy said that it has discovered little to no evidence of anything threatening, but added the technology is powerful enough to disable the drones if necessary, although that's generally illegal in the United States. In Elizabeth, New Jersey, Nate Foy, Fox News.
Nate, thanks so much here. What you're about to watch in just a moment is an interview special report anchor Brett Baer did with National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby on all of these drone questions. Though Kirby was speaking to reporters earlier today, Joey Garrison at USA Today, who covers the White House, quotes Kirby on the New Jersey drones. Kirby saying, quote, we assess that the sightings to date include a combination of lawful commercial drones, hobbyist drones, and law enforcement drones, as well as manned fixed-wing aircraft, helicopters, and even stars that were mistakenly reported as drones. And Garrison also quotes Kirby as well in reiterating, quote, we have not identified anything anomalous or any national security or public safety risk over the civilian airspace in New Jersey or other states in the Northeast. The work continues. But President-elect Donald Trump speaking down there in Florida at his residence at Mar-a-Lago in that press conference did say this on the drones, quote, the government knows what is happening. He says, look, our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. Trump says they know where it came from and where it went. For some reason, they don't want to comment. So Trump drawing this speculation about what the government knows and doesn't know about the drone situation. Let's hear a little bit more from National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby in this interview on Fox tonight. Let's watch.
That's the Ocean County Sheriff in New Jersey talking about the situation in the sky. Joining us now to talk about these mysterious drones flying over parts of the U.S., White House National Security Communications Advisor, retired Admiral John Kirby. John, thanks for being here. Okay. You hear all of these officials. You've heard a lot of concern, a lot of coverage. Where are you tonight on this?
As we look at the information we've got, Brett, and we've now examined some 5,000 different sightings, we've added detection capabilities, additional observers. As you and I stand here today, to date, our assessment is that this is lawful, legal, commercial, hobbyist, and even law enforcement aircraft activity. Some of it's manned, some of it's unmanned. We absolutely acknowledge that a lot of these are probably drones, but they're flying legally. And it is legal to fly drones in non-restricted airspace as long as you're registered with the FAA. And there's thousands and thousands of these kinds of flights every single day. I think there's more than 1 million drones that are registered with the FAA just in the United States alone.
But this is different, it seems. These are bigger. They're 6 feet in diameter, a lot of them. There was a reporter the other day that saw 50 coming from the coast at one, pack. I know when you first came out, you said that most of these are manned. Can you concede that maybe most of these are not manned?
Well, I said was at the time, and this was Thursday, when we were not as informed as we are today based on the resources we have applied to the problem set. I said many of the reported sightings we believe to be manned aircraft. That was true when we said it on Thursday. We still believe, Brett, that some of these are, in fact, manned aircraft. I couldn't give you a breakdown of what percentage, but we do believe that still some of these sightings are, in fact, manned aircraft. We also acknowledge that a lot of them are unmanned aircraft. aircraft. But again, our assessment to date, given all the work that we've done, the FBI, state and local officials, that these are legal and lawful drones flying for the common good.
Okay, the Homeland Security Secretary said over the weekend that right now they don't have any foreign involvement, criminal activity. We don't see them as a national security concern. How can you get to that point? How can you get to that conclusion with what you're seeing?
Because we've done the analysis, we've done the detection and the analysis, we've corroborated the sightings, and in every case that we have examined to date, we have seen nothing that indicates a public safety risk. There are drones flying over the skies of the United States every single night, every single day, and we've seen nothing in and around New Jersey that should give the people on the ground there concerns for their safety for this activity. And we've seen nothing, working with the Department of Defense as well, that indicates a foreign adversary actor involved or any kind of pernicious national security threat. Now, there have been some drone sightings, I think, as you know, over some military bases. We're obviously looking at that. That is a different category, and DOD has different authorities to deal with that. But again, we've also seen no disruption of operations at our bases in New Jersey either from any of this.
Okay, here's the president-elect today.
They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense.
What's your answer to that?
Well, I think it goes back to the first question you asked me, Brett. I mean, we have made an assessment based on the work we've done thus far, and our assessment is that this is lawful and legal activity, whether it's manned or unmanned. Again, we see no indication of a national security or public safety risk.
Okay, but there are so many of them, John.
Assessment.
There are so many of them, John. If this was happening over Delaware, Rehoboth Beach, would you be a little bit more concerned? I mean, I guess the people of New Jersey wonder why it took so long to get to the point you are now. And if you see all of this, doesn't a local authority need the authority to be able to deal with it? Is it something Congress has to pass? Because they want to say, I don't want a 6-foot wide diameter refrigerator flying over my house and falling on my roof.
That's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it, Brett, because we absolutely do want to see congressional action. The Biden administration proposed legislation for counter-UAS authorities, additional authorities, to close some of the gaps and seams that you're talking about, not only between our own agencies here in the federal government, but the gaps that exist between us and state and local authorities. We absolutely want to see that legislation, and President Biden's calling for a bipartisan task force on Capitol Hill to do exactly that, to try to drive some legislative remedies. I think everybody, and I think we all understand this, Brett. I mean, we're in a new ecosystem in terms of unmanned aircraft in this country. Again, all legal and lawful and doing the right thing for the public good, but it's a brand new ecosystem. There are more systems flying, more purposes over more cities than ever before, and the authorities and the gaps and seams that those authorities don't give us have not kept up with that ecosystem, and so we want to see that driving forward.
All right, last thing. You don't see any linkage between the number of, that this is all tied together in one thing. You think these are all different elements and different kinds of drones, not with one company, not with the military, not with the DOE, Department of Energy. You don't say that they're looking for some nuclear material. You say these are all different flying objects, some of them manned, some not.
Our assessment to date is that, Brett, that this is a collection of law enforcement, hobbyists, commercial drones, and of course civil aviation aircraft that have caused all these sightings. And it's not attributable to an actor for a purpose. And again, I want to stress to your viewers, we don't see anything that indicates a national security or a public safety threat. The last thing I'll say, Brett, and I appreciate the time you're giving me, is this is an ongoing investigation. We're still working our way through this. Sightings continue to come in. We've taken them all seriously, and we'll continue to look at this. And if we learn more, if we know more, certainly if we find something that's contradictory to what we believe today, I'll be right up here on your show talking about it.
And we will have you on right away. John, we appreciate the time.
You bet.
Thanks. Up next, one Democrat, one Republican. We seek...
Okay, so wanted to make sure you heard that conversation there between Brett Baer and John Kirby. Just a note here, live picture there over a foggy Washington, live picture over the U.S. Capitol. There have been some reports, though, of New Jersey residents shining spotlights and laser pointers at what they think are these drones flying overhead. But sometimes They're either cargo or commercial airliners. And the FBI field office in Newark has this guidance here. This is a lengthy statement. I'm going to read it in part. They say this, that the FBI Newark and New Jersey State Police want to warn the public about an increase in pilots of manned aircraft being hit in the eyes with lasers because people on the ground think they see an unmanned aircraft system. They say there is also a concern with people possibly firing weapons at what they believe to be a UAS, but could be a manned aircraft. FBI Newark, New Jersey State Police, and dozens of other agencies and law enforcement partners have been out every night for several weeks to legally track down operators acting illegally or with nefarious intent and using every available tool and piece of equipment to find the answers the public is seeking. However, there could be dangerous and possibly deadly consequences if manned aircraft are targeted mistakenly as UAS, i.e., drones there. So wanted to make sure we got that in. And you heard there the FBI field office in Newark and the New Jersey State Police telling residents don't shoot weapons up in the sky at what you mistakenly might think is a drone, or shoot kind of laser pointers or light beams, what have you there as well. So interesting part of the story. Wanted to get that in on this Monday. In the meantime, let's take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll be talking about politics. We heard at length today from President-elect Donald Trump welcoming and joining in with a Japanese businessman from SoftBank who has announced a $100 billion investment in the United States. Well, what will that investment look like? And of course, Trump took questions from reporters about a whole host of topics today. We'll have that for you after the break. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. We do have a live pick there at a very foggy Washington at the White House. Down in South Florida earlier today, President-elect Donald Trump joined the CEO of SoftBank Group, Masayoshi Son, to announce plans by the Japanese company to invest $100 billion in U.S. projects over the next 4 years. These planned investments, according to the Associated Press and according to President-elect Trump, are expected to focus on artificial intelligence there, as well as a number of other key priorities for the Trump administration, the incoming administration. This announcement was made today alongside Trump's pick to head up the Department of Commerce. Howard Lutnick, his longtime friend here, Fox News' Caroline Shively has more on this announcement. Let's listen.
Thank you very much.
Donald Trump appearing alongside the CEO of Japanese venture capital giant SoftBank with a major announcement.
SoftBank will be investing $100 billion in America, creating 100,000 American jobs at a minimum.
Trump says the investment will include artificial intelligence, but the president-elect didn't stop there. He addressed many of the top issues his new administration will face, including the war in Ukraine, and he had a new message for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
We should be prepared to make a deal.
Mr. Trump also sent a message to Hamas to release hostages by the time he takes office on January 20th.
If these hostages aren't back home by that date, all hell's going to break out.
Closer to home, the president-elect defended his health secretary pick, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has promoted debunked theories that connect vaccines to autism. While Trump reiterated his support for the polio vaccine, he says the U.S. needs to look into the prevalence of autism.
We're going to look into finding why is the autism rate so much higher than it was 20, 25, 30 years ago. I mean, it's 100 times higher.
At several points, Trump recalled the successes of his first term, sometimes veering from the facts.
We had no wars. We had no problems. We had no inflation. We had it less than 1%.
Mr. Trump told reporters that Elon Musk and Doge would shave $2 trillion from the U.S. budget, but said the American people won't have to sacrifice any benefits. In Washington, Caroline Shively, Fox News.
Caroline, thanks so much. So just a little more context, according to the Associated Press. After Trump won the White House for the first time back in 2016, he met with SoftBank CEO Son before taking office. Son, at the time, then announced plans to create 50,000 jobs and invest $50 billion in U.S. startups. Now, after Trump won a second non-consecutive term. Sohn doubling that figure and plans to invest $100 billion in the United States. In the meantime here, let's have you watch this, listen to this. Like I said, Trump took a lot of questions from reporters down there at Mar-a-Lago on a whole host of topics. Let's watch.
That offer made, and we have so many companies coming in now that will be announcing, or that will announce themselves. We don't have to be with them to do it, but they'll be announcing. And as I said, small business optimism took a 41-point jump. 41 points. It went up 41 points. That's unheard of, and that's the biggest they think in recorded history. But they know at least a minimum of 39 years, so that's great. But on behalf of the American people, I want to thank Masa for his faith in what's happening with our country and what's happening with the world. There's a whole light over the entire world. Many people, some reporters, in speaking to them, they said, you know, it actually is true. A couple of them are not necessarily friends of mine, but they said it is actually true that there's a light shining over the world. We're trying to help very strongly in getting the hostages back, as you know, with Israel and the Middle East. We're working very much on that. We're trying to get the war stopped, that horrible war that's going on in Ukraine, with Russia, Ukraine. We're going to, we've got a little progress. It's a tough one. It's a nasty one. It's nasty. People are being killed at levels that nobody's ever seen. You know, it's very level fields, and the only thing that stops a bullet is a body, a human body. And the number of soldiers that are being killed on both sides is astronomical. I've never seen anything like that. And rapidly, I get reports every week, and it's not even, you know, it's like just going down. Nobody's seen anything like it. It's a very flat surface, a very flat land. That's why it's great farming land. It's the breadbasket for the world, actually. But it's very flat, and there's nothing to stop a bullet but a body. There's no protection, no nothing, and it's what's happening there is far worse than people are reporting for both sides. So we're going to do our best, and we've been doing our best, and we'll see what happens. But since the election, I've been working every day to put the world at ease a little bit, to get rid of the wars. We had no wars when I left office, and now it's the whole world is blowing up. But there's great optimism, and you saw that by SoftBank. Starting on day one, we'll implement a rapid series of bold reforms to restore our nation to full prosperity. We're going to go full prosperity and to build the greatest economy the world has ever seen, just as we had just a short time ago. We had it in my term. We had the greatest economy that the world had seen. We were blowing away everybody. Our country was doubling up on China, doubling up on everybody, and everybody knows it. And then we had to slow it down with COVID, unfortunately, at the end. But even then, I gave it back with a substantial increase of the stock market, bigger than it was pre-COVID, so it was pretty amazing. Already preparations are underway to slash massive numbers of job-killing regulations, eliminating 10 old regulations for every new one. You put a new regulation on, you have to get rid of 10, and we'll be able to do it. And that was about the percentage we had. We cut more regulations than any president has ever cut, by far, actually, by approximately 5 times. Some of those regulations, unfortunately, were put back on, but we'll catch up very quickly. We'll catch up with it. One of the things I'd like to ask the Biden administration, as you probably heard, there are 2 events that took place. We're talking about a friendly takeover, a friendly transition, as they like to say. This is a friendly transition, and it is, but there are 2 events that took place that I think are very terrible. One is that if people don't come back to work, come back into the office, they're going to be dismissed. And somebody in the Biden administration gave a 5-year waiver of that, so that for 5 years, people don't have to come back into the office. It involved 49,000 people. For 5 years, they don't have to go. They just signed this thing. It's ridiculous. So it was like a gift to a union, and we're going to obviously be in court to stop it. The other thing is really terrible. We spent a tremendous amount of money on building the wall. The wall was designed specifically by the Border Patrol because it's very hard to climb. They need to have see-through. They need it to be steel because you can't cut. It's very powerful steel. It's very hard steel. It's special type of steel, but very, very hard to cut. Inside the steel, as you know, we pour concrete, and that's a grade 10 concrete, which is a very strong concrete, very as though you were building about a 60-story building. It's very powerful concrete. They've made tremendous technology advances in the word concrete. Who would think that? But I know that from the construction industry. Today, what you can do with concrete is incredible. So we have a very strong concrete. And then we have a rebar. We put rebar inside the concrete, and the rebar likewise is very hard to cut. So it's a very expensive process, very expensive wall. And then we put a anti-climb plate on the top. You saw that. And I didn't like the look of it, but then when I watched, we had people testing. We had mountain climbers actually testing, and they were not able to get over the anti-climb plate. So I said, all right, I guess we're going to put it on. That plate on top, which I never loved the look of it, but it works so unbelievably well, you have to do it. So we spent a lot of money on building it, and we have hundreds of miles that we put up. A lot of people don't realize, but we did 571 miles of wall. That's why we had such good records, in addition to the fact that Mexico helped us with their military. They kept people out, and they were actually very good under the past leader. But now we ordered an additional 200 miles of wall. It's very expensive. And now it's about double the price of what it would have been 6 years ago. And the administration is trying to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar, knowing that we're getting ready to put it up. And what they're doing is really an act. It's almost a criminal act. They know we're going to use it, and if we don't have it, we're going to have to rebuild it, and it'll cost double what it cost years ago, and that's hundreds of millions of dollars, because you're talking about a lot of wall. I built much more than I said I was going to build, but then after it was built, I said, you know, we can do some more, because it's sort of like water, people flow through, and that will pretty much really take care of it. And what happened is they just, as you see, they're trying to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar, and that's really, that has nothing to do with a smooth transition. That has to do with people really trying to stop our nation. And all it means really is that we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars more, not even talking about the time. Time would be pretty long, but we'll spend hundreds of millions of dollars more on building the same wall that we already have. And people have already come back to us that have deals at 5 cents and 4 cents, and one guy had 3 cents on the dollar, and they offered to sell it back to us at more money than it cost us to build substantially. Can you believe it? So they make a deal with the United States to buy it for pennies, and then they call us and they say, do you want to buy it back? We'll sell it back to you for hundreds of dollars a foot. Hundreds of dollars, from pennies to hundreds of dollars a foot. And we can't let this take place. Now we're going to go, I spoke with the Attorney General of Texas, I spoke to the senators of Texas, I spoke to a lot of people, and hopefully they'll be able to stop. We're going to be, having a restraining order. But just think about how ridiculous it is. And this is just people that don't want this country to succeed. And this has nothing to do with Democrat or Republican. This has to do with common sense. We won on common sense, and this is maybe one of the most egregious examples I've seen. So the people that are buying it or trying to buy it are trying to make a deal with us to sell it back at hundreds of times more than we paid. And this is all because the Democrats. So I'm asking today Joe Biden to please stop selling the wall. We're going to use that to create a strong barrier, and it worked. That's why our numbers were so good. It really worked, and it worked well. And it's very expensive to do. And I'm asking Joe Biden to stop his people from giving it away. It's something that people can't even believe is happening. So hopefully Joe will be able to stop it.
Okay, so I want to step away from that. We got to get a quick commercial break in. Andrew Kraft here. So you heard President-elect Donald Trump speaking at length there about this story, these reports about the outgoing Biden administration possibly selling at a discount pieces of the border wall that have not been constructed just yet here. Live picture there at the U.S. Capitol. We're hearing from one Republican senator about this particular report. That's Tom Cotton from Arkansas. And this was Fox exclusive today, that Cotton is demanding that Department of Defense Secretary Austin promise to keep all records as the Biden administration continues to sell southern border wall materials for low prices ahead of President-elect Trump's second term. So Senator Cotton said in this letter to Lloyd Austin today, quote, "I write to demand full accountability and transparency from the Department of Defense about its role in the disposal of excess border wall materials from the first Trump administration." He acknowledged President Biden was the one who decided to, quote, "halt the needed construction of the southwestern border wall," but added that he had questions about the DOD's role in the sale of materials here. So wanted to make sure we got that piece of news in. It's a story we're going to keep tabs on throughout the course of the week to see if Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin there at the Pentagon responds to Senator Tom Cotton's letter. In the meantime here, a sad story we have to report as we continue to cover the immigration crisis, the southern border crisis writ large here. Our colleague there, Fox News correspondent Bill Malugin, has this reporting a really, really sad day for Customs and Border Protection, confirming one of their agents today was killed in a helicopter crash near the border in San Diego County. The statement from CBP goes as follows. On December 16th, a CBP Air and Marine Operations aircraft on a border security mission was involved in an aviation mishap in the vicinity of Potrero, California. Tragically, a CBP air interdiction agent, the pilot and sole occupant of the aircraft, was pronounced deceased at the scene. Additional information will be provided as it becomes available. So, like I said, a very, very sad day for CBP there, confirming in a statement that a member of their force, a CBP air interdiction agent, died in this aviation mishap is what they are calling it. This was the pilot, the sole occupant of the aircraft, and he was pronounced dead at the scene today. So this was near the San Diego County border sector in Potrero, California. So wanted to make sure we got that in as well. All right, let's take our final commercial break of this hour. When we come back, you'll be hearing more from the president-elect today down there at Mar-a-Lago, speaking on a whole host of topics. We'll have it for you in just a moment. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. It's been a very, very busy Monday. I want to thank you for being with us. We hope you had a good weekend here. Live Now look there at New York at the top of the next hour. In just a few minutes here, we're going to be diving into a pretty big update and development in the hush money payment conviction of now President-elect Donald Trump. We're getting a ruling on a key part of it from the judge in that case. We'll bring that to you in about 6 minutes' time. But let's continue listening to President-elect Donald Trump there at Mar-a-Lago today with the CEO of SoftBank with this announcement that Son, the CEO, will be investing $100 billion in the United States at the beginning there of Trump's non-consecutive second term. But let's keep listening.
Hopefully, Joe will be able to stop it. We'll soon unleash American energy, and this will be done at levels not seen before, issuing quick approvals for pipelines, drilling, and other infrastructure. It'll be clean energy, and we'll bring in the price of electricity, and we're going to bring it down fast. We're also going to create clean coal. Clean coal is something that has really taken over. We have coal that will last for over 1,000 years. We have so much coal. And with a process, it becomes clean coal. It's very powerful energy, unlike wind. It's very, very powerful. And we're going to be doing a lot of clean coal for the people of West Virginia and others, Wyoming, so many states. We have great states. And they'll be happy to hear it. But we're going to be very much into clean coal. I don't ever use the word coal. I use the word clean coal. And I'll keep my promise to pass historic tax cuts for American families, workers, and businesses that create jobs in America. As you know, we're giving tax cuts if they do it here. We brought it down from 44%, 42%. In some cases, it was 39%. We brought it all the way down to 21%. And now we're bringing it down to 15%, but only if they make their product, their car, or whatever they're doing in the United States, in the U.S. And people are thrilled. I've had the smartest people on Wall Street call me. They said, "Where'd you get that idea?" And it doesn't seem that complicated, right? But it's it's like the paperclip. Nobody ever thought of it. One guy thought of it. Everybody looked at it. They said, "Wow, that was a good idea. Why didn't I think of it?" But we're bringing it down 6 more points, and that will put us really at the best level we've ever had for bringing in business. We've never been down to that level. We'll be among the lowest taxed states, and a lot of businesses are going to come in. Between that and our taxing and tariff policies, we're going to have business like nobody's ever seen in this country before. That's why we're having a 41-year record in optimism from small businesses and big businesses. And I'll keep my promise to pass historic tax cuts for families, workers, and businesses that create jobs in America. Any business that invests $1 billion or more in the United States will be eligible for fully expedited permits and approvals, including environmental approvals from the federal government. So when companies come in, if they're going to invest $1 billion or more, there'll be many of them, and they'll go into Detroit, and they'll go into a lot of places where we want them. You saw how well I did with the auto workers. We did unbelievably. You saw how well we did with the Teamsters, and also the non-union were record 98%, 97%. Nobody's ever got numbers like that because we're bringing business back, and they're all coming back. We lost them over years of stupidity, I call it. I call it the years of stupidity, the decades of stupidity. Through the Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk has been working very hard with various people, including Vivek. We're going to eliminate hundreds of billions of dollars of waste and fraud, and I can only tell you, I'll give you a little early report, they're finding things that you wouldn't even believe. So we're looking to save maybe $2 trillion, and it'll have no impact. Actually, it'll make life better, but it'll have no impact on people. It's not like we will never cut Social Security, things like that. It's just waste, fraud, and abuse. And we'll immediately restore the sovereign borders of the United States and stop illegal immigration, which is costing us, I believe, trillions of dollars a year. I think it's a cost that nobody's ever seen anything like it. I don't know how can you be satisfied releasing prisoners into the United States. Think of this. You're releasing prisoners from jails all over the world, not just in South America. From the Congo, I would talk about it all the time. They're a very big sender of people. But from all over the world, they're sending prisoners out of their jails. Some of their jails are empty, and they will be empty soon if this ever continued. I spoke with the president of Mexico, and as you know, I spoke with Justin Trudeau of Canada, and we told them it's not fair, not right. You can't let these people come into our country. And they understand. They're very much on notice. And they're going to have to stop this from happening. They're going to have to stop it. We lose a lot of money to Mexico. We lose a lot of money to Canada, tremendous amount. We're subsidizing Canada. We're subsidizing Mexico. That can't go on. And I get along with the people of Mexico and Canada very well, but we can't let that happen. Why are we supporting and giving other countries hundreds of billions of dollars? It's not fair, it's not right. And the people of Mexico and Canada fully understand that. We've talked about it before, but now we're doing something about it. We started, and then we had to fix the COVID situation, and that's what we did. But now we're doing it. We're doing it from the beginning. Howard will be largely in charge. We'll be working on it together. Howard's terrific. He's done a fantastic job, and he's really helped us a lot with transition. I think we have fantastic people coming in. So all of these policies will help us rapidly defeat inflation, create millions of new jobs, and put money in the pockets of the hardworking families of our country, pay off debt. We're going to be paying off a tremendous amount of debt. We're at $36 trillion. You don't want to be there. And we're going to be using a lot of the money that we make. We're going to be opening up a lot of businesses that are going to be pouring in because of our tax policy. And we're going to use the money that we made to pay off debt. and to reduce taxes. We're going to further reduce taxes. If you remember when we reduced them last time, that brought a tremendous amount. We brought it down to 21%, and that was the biggest tax cut in the history of our country. And nobody ever thought this would happen, but this is what's supposed to happen. We actually ended up taking in more revenue at 21 than we did at 40%, which was pretty amazing. But this will be the most exciting and successful period of reform and renewal in all of American history, maybe of global history. The golden age of America, I call it. It's begun. So it's the golden age of America, and that's what it's going to be. And we hope we don't have any intervening problems, because things happen. Like out of nowhere came the China virus. Out of nowhere came other things we don't want to have. You know, when I left, we had no wars. We had no problems. The Middle East was good. We did the Abraham Accords. We did things that nobody thought were even possible. But think of it, 4 years ago, we had no wars. You didn't have Russia going into Ukraine. They wouldn't have done it. They weren't even thinking about it. When they saw what happened in Afghanistan, I think they gave them an idea, but they wouldn't have done it. They would have never gone. President Putin would have never gone in. And now you look at all those people are dead. All those cities are destroyed. You know, it's nice to say they want their land back, but the cities are largely destroyed. They've left Kiev because probably maybe they want to use it or occupy it, but they haven't done it. They've done a lot of damage, but relatively compared to the other cities, very little. But many of those cities are gone. Those beautiful towers, those beautiful buildings that they had are now laying on their sides, destroyed, totally destroyed. The turrets and all of the magnificent 1,000-year-old, 2,000-year-old structures that were very strong are blown to smithereens. You look at some of those cities and not one building standing. So, you know, when you say take over the country, take over what? Take over what? That's a 100-year rebuild. Take 100 years to rebuild it, and you can never have it the way it was. What a shame. It should have never happened. It would have never happened. If I were president, that war would have never happened. Nor would Israel have happened with the attack on Israel. So we're inheriting big challenges at home and all over the world. Again, we had no wars. We had no problems. We had no inflation. We had no inflation. We had it less than 1%. Perfect number. And then we had inflation, the likes of which I say, I don't believe.
Okay, so we're in a new hour now. We want to step away from this. Don't worry, though. We're still talking about President-elect Donald Trump. He was going on at length there about the wars in Gaza and in Ukraine. We'll be touching on some of our top international headlines in the next hour here. But like I said, we're focusing our efforts on President-elect Donald Trump. We have a live picture there in New York City, and this has to do with his hush money payment conviction. You'll remember the conviction is still operative. It's still on the table. Well, today, a judge there, the judge in the case all along, rejected Trump's argument that a recent Supreme Court ruling had nullified his criminal case in New York, upholding the former and future president's felony conviction for falsifying records to cover up a sex scandal with porn star Stormy Daniels. Let's talk about this with our friend, legal analyst Randy Zellen. He joins me. And Randy, good to see you here. I guess, I don't know if you want to call this a bow on this particular story. We know the sentencing in this case has been indefinitely delayed and postponed now that Trump will enter the Oval Office January 20th of next year. But some of the arguments the Trump legal team was putting forth about vacating the conviction entirely rested on that question that you and I have discussed so often about presidential immunity. Judge Juan Merchan in the case today in this ruling saying, doesn't matter in this. Why?
What the court did was essentially look at the evidence in total and essentially said, okay, let's assume for argument's sake, we take the Supreme Court decision, we look at the three possibilities, you get absolute immunity from those constitutional duties that you have as president, you get presumptive immunity from those official acts. Let's assume for the moment that some of the things that went on took place while Mr. Trump was president. However, since the payment itself took place beforehand, that is clearly an unofficial act. And the evidence was so overwhelming that even if the jury heard evidence that it shouldn't have, because it fell under this umbrella of presumptive immunity, the evidence was so overwhelming, it doesn't really matter. And I think that that is the fundamental flaw in the court's reasoning.
Okay, so just because a conviction may stand doesn't necessarily mean whatever the jury rendered in the hush money payments trial, 34 felony counts of falsifying business records, the guilt is still there, right? I mean, the conviction is still in place, but
it is there for the moment. But the question is going to be, since, by the way, it's typically the appellate court that determines whether or not error was harmless. And here, Justice Merchan saying, well, if the jury heard evidence that it shouldn't have, because it would have been protected under presumptive immunity, it's no big deal. The evidence was overwhelming. That's really for the appellate court to weigh in on. And the appellate court has to determine that President Trump, now president, former president at the time, that he was deprived of a fair trial. And I would respectfully submit that any evidence that the jury heard that it shouldn't have, because a hearing should have been held, assuming that that decision had come down before the trial, the Supreme Court weighing in on presidential immunity, had a hearing been held and the court determined that a lot of that evidence shouldn't have come in, I think that the former president, now president, was in fact deprived of a fair trial. And I think the appellate division will end up throwing out the conviction.
okay, do you anticipate that will happen soon, or will President-elect Donald Trump serve a full 4-year term? And could this happen in 2029 and beyond, Randy?
Well, it's interesting because right now there's still another motion on the table, which is whether or not the court should dismiss and basically vacate the conviction because President-elect Trump is going to be president. So that's an argument that still has yet to be decided. And then there is this kind of odd notion. Does the court say, okay, tell you what, we're going to leave things as they are. I'm not going to sentence President Trump now. I'm going to sentence him when he leaves office in 2029. So it is possible that this can get kicked down the road for the better part of 5 years and let the court figure out what to do then. But again, I suspect here that the appellate division at some point is going to weigh in because, truth be told, Andrew, the country has spoken.
Yeah, no, that's true, Randy, and that's a political consideration. But I think people watching this, viewers, they're scratching their heads. How can you freeze in place a conviction without rendering any penalty phase and then pick it back up X, Y, Z years later?
There's no precedent for this because never in the history of our country, as President Trump likes to say, never in our history has a president, whether a former president, a president-elect, a sitting president, ever been convicted of a crime, let alone 34 felonies. So we are in completely uncharted territory. But I do think that Justice Merchan should vacate the conviction. This country should get a clean slate and a clean start. We don't need a president with 34 felony convictions.
I mean, to your point, he would be the first incoming president to have a felony conviction, i.e. be a felon here. I mean,
nobody cares.
But do you anticipate a conviction vacation while he's president? I mean, is Merchan going to take this up speedily, or does this have to get to a higher court in New York?
I sense, I don't know that the court is going to now look at the second motion, which is that the conviction should be vacated because he's now president, though Justice Merchan could surprise us and vacate it on those grounds, which I think would be great. But if he doesn't, it will be for the appellate court to weigh in. And I would think that we would probably have a decision on that, unless it could be fast-tracked somehow, probably within a year to 18 months. But we do need some resolution, and we really do need to close the book and move forward.
I guess my question was, do you think that's going to happen before January 20th? It doesn't seem like you do. Randy Zelen, as always, can't thank you enough. You've really provided such great insight. Now, over more than a year of this case and this trial and this conviction, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
All right, in the meantime here, so just wanted to make sure we got that in. That broke earlier this afternoon here, and that was the news today. Prosecutors there had argued that the Supreme Court's immunity decision on that presidential question had, quote, no bearing on this prosecution, noting Trump was convicted of orchestrating a scheme involving a personal and political crisis that predated his presidency. Now, you remember that question of presidential immunity. The Supreme Court had to grapple with private acts and official public acts that an executive undertakes. So, wanted to get that in there as well. All right, let's take our first commercial break of this hour. I'm Andrew Kraft. We have a lot more top headlines. Remember, Trump has been saying some ideas about the economy, about what to do about the U.S. Postal Service, musing that it may be privatized under his administration. Also, he commented at length today about TikTok at that press conference at Mar-a-Lago, saying, hey, he is in favor of keeping TikTok. This, as the owners of TikTok are pleading with the Supreme Court to intervene before this January 19th deadline that would ban the app in the United States unless a sale of it is forced before that date. So we're going to get into all of that after the break.